We got a bunch of different stories to go over having to do with Antifa, street violence. And, one of the things that I want to bring up in this is kind of the tribal divide and how a lot of these stories get covered. So I'm going to address a left and right wing story to make sure we can have some balance here on good old rational centrist Tim Pool's channel. The first story, big update, pair of Proud Boys cop plea over Manhattan Brawl. I would just like to let you all know this is a victory for the Proud Boys, plain and simple. Now, there's a lot of people on the left that are saying, are you going to talk about this, Tim? The Proud Boys are pleading guilty. And I'm like, and most people plead guilty in most cases, right? If you plead guilty, there you go. You've pled guilty. As far as listen, I was going to say look and listen. Listen, I am not going to defend anybody who pleads guilty. If you're innocent, don't plead guilty, period. End of story. I give no sympathy for those who are trying to avoid a trial tax. That's what it's called when you're penalized more heavily for, if you're innocent, you're innocent. But these guys pled. Now here's why here. I'll tell you, this is a very short story, but I'll tell you why exactly this is a victory. You can just see it. Two members of the far-right Proud Boys took plea deals Friday in connection to a Manhattan brawl outside the Stead Metropolitan Republican Club. Jake Frejo and Eric Kaczynski copped to disorderly conduct, which isn't categorized as a crime, and agreed to complete 5 days of community service in exchange for no jail sentence. The case against their 8 co-defendants is still pending in Manhattan Supreme Court. The group got into a melee with leftist protesters after Proud Boys founder Gavin McInnes delivered a speech at the Upper East Side Club on October 12th. Let me just stress these points. They pled guilty to something that is not a crime. Disorderly conduct seems like a petty offense. 5 days community service. They're walking away as if nothing happened. Okay, no jail time, community service. It is a slap on the wrist, to say the least. So, to the people on the left who are saying, oh, they're pleading guilty, it's like, yeah, they were offered to walk and they said, sure, we'll walk. While others might get gang violence charges, and they're serious charges. Now, this is the Proud Boys pleading guilty. Your opinion on the matter is entirely up to you. I'm just saying it sounds like these two guys, it's a victory for them because, they're kind of walking away from this one. We do have another story here. Let me enlarge this. 19-year-old was charged with assaulting an 81-year-old man wearing a MAGA hat. So this morning I did a video about the dude in Berkeley was charged with a felony for punching a conservative. Well, this was another story, another update, because I did a video talking about several instances. We now have from Time magazine, time.com, a 19-year-old man has been arrested for attacking an 81-year-old wearing a MAGA hat in Somerset, New Jersey, prosecutors say. Police were called to a grocery store in Franklin Township outside New Brunswick on Monday to investigate a report of a fight. When they arrived, the 81-year-old told police he had been confronted by a man over his MAGA hat as he left the store with his groceries. Okay, 19-year-old. Okay, everyone, don't attack 81-year-olds who are minding their own business. That's absurd. I had no problem criticizing the woman who got in the face with that Muslim the other day. I have no problem calling out a 19-year-old with Trump derangement syndrome attacking an 81-year-old man. I don't care if the 81-year-old is saying ridiculous, offensive, and racist things. Don't assault old people. You're crazy. Come on. They say a brief verbal confrontation allegedly ensued, after which the victim attempted to leave the area. As he turned to walk away, the assailant, identified by police as Ryan M. Salvagno, 19, was able to grab the victim's hat, prompting a struggle, according to prosecutors. Salvagno then allegedly took the victim by the arm and threw him to the ground, tipping over the elderly man's cart of groceries and throwing the hat to one side, prosecutors say. Police say they found the victim suffering from minor injuries upon arriving at the scene. Salvagno now faces charges including assault and harassment. MAGA hats, which President Donald Trump made popular during his 2016 election campaign, have become divisive, with some bars and restaurants banning customers supporting the red headwear. Yes, how insane is it that you wear a stupid red hat and someone's gonna throw you to... Listen, how insane is it that we're at a time where an 81-year-old man, for wearing the hat, is thrown to the ground by a teenager? Dude, seriously? Chill out, man. That's ridiculous. And I wish this would get covered more by the Twitterati and mainstream left, but they don't do it. They don't do it because when Jussie Smollett claims a hate crime, everyone goes wild. But when an 81-year-old man gets thrown to the ground, where's the news coverage? And obviously, I'm not talking about Time.com. I'm talking about the viral outrage on Twitter, the celebrities, the high-profile digital outlets, all of those things. We see some few and far between. Now, I have a few other stories to bring up here. Next is Fox News, but we're going to do a little left-right thing here because I have this story from Willamette Week. Texts between Portland police and Patriot Prayer ringleader Joey Gibson show warm exchange. Now, this story was picked up by a ton of outlets where they were trying to make it seem like the Proud Boys were colluding with police or vice versa, and I think it's an extreme exaggeration. I also believe this may be the woman. I could be wrong, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think she's the one who tried calling me alt-right, and then they had to retract it, and then just outright removed alt-right from my name because that's ridiculous. These people are nuts. But we do have this story too. Antifa activist facing assault charges was tied to Democratic policymakers. The reason I bring both of these up is because both sides focus on one thing. Admittedly, it's my understanding I'm more likely to see these kinds of stories carried by the right, kind of addressing the issue, whereas this story appears nowhere to be found on left-wing media. And this falls into something interesting we've heard. I believe it came from Jack Dorsey on Sam Harris's podcast, where Dorsey said left-wing journalists only follow each other. Conservative journalists do follow left-wing journalists. So what happens? Conservatives will address these issues and they'll try to, rebut them. And the left doesn't address these issues. They ignore them. Well, what do we have? Two stories where there is concern over extremist factions having direct ties to government officials in some capacity, be it the police, which I think might be a stretch because I think the dude was, I don't think, he may have been of prominence, but this is national level Democratic policymakers. This dude right here, full disclosure, has spread rumors and lies about me and caused me strife in the past. I know him personally, though it's not like I've seen him in several years. Just so, full disclosure. But you see Fox News, they run this story about his ties to Democratic policymakers. And I want to point out, I think this is a bit of a stretch, as is this. They're both worth talking about, don't get me wrong. But look, this dude is another mix of faces and a bunch of faces. I don't think Maxine Waters necessarily knew anything about, this guy's history. Some people did. A lot of these nonprofits did know this guy was an extremist, and he calls for ridiculous things on Twitter. And he was arrested, okay, for ethnic intimidation, among other felony charges, because he was part of a group screaming ethnic slurs at two Marines because there was an event where they thought these guys were Proud Boys. Ooh, I got a burp coming. Sorry. And apparently the Marines did nothing wrong. These guys attacked him. Now dude's getting arrested, and people have dug into his past and found that here he is with Maxine Waters. In this story, this story actually sounds... So here, I'll just read some of it. Hundreds of texts between Portland police and right-wing Joey Gibson reveal the extent to which law enforcement officers talked to and even coordinated with right-wing activists in order to police protests in 2017 and 2018. Yes, this makes sense because the police are trying to organize what the march was going to do. If Gibson's going to march, then sure, they'd say, okay, well, all right, well, here's what we'll do and here's what we won't. Now, there is criticism to go around because this part is very important. They say on December 8th, 2017, Naya asks Gibson if Tois had his court stuff taken care of, referring to an active warrant for, I believe that's Tiny, his arrest. Naya goes on to say officers ignored the warrant at a past protest and tells Gibson that he doesn't see a need to arrest him, even if he has a warrant, unless Tiny commits a new crime, just to make sure he doesn't do anything which may draw our attention. Naya texted on December 9th, if he still has the warrant in the system, I don't run you guys, so I don't personally know. The officers could arrest him. I don't see a need to arrest on the warrant unless there is a reason. That sounds like some straight up coordination. Police should not be doing this. If there's an arrest, police arrest the person, period. While I certainly think a lot of this gets stretched and blown out of proportion because the left wants to shriek and wiggle their arms in the air, I do think we can see a problem here that needs to be criticized. The same is true for this with Alcoff. I'm not going to blame high-level Democrats for not knowing who this one fringe weirdo is, but at a certain point, you need to vet your volunteers and your staff, plain and simple. Now, I want to bring up one more thing before signing off. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was upset because someone took a photo of her while she was eating a burger. Well, she was eating something, I don't know, but the person she was with was eating a burger. Someone took a picture of her, it got tweeted, and she got angry. How creepy was it? Really? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez upset that somebody took a photo of her from a restaurant? I seem to recall Ms. Maxine Waters telling other activists on the left to confront politicians in restaurants and push back on them. Cortez, you got off light. You don't see Republicans storming into the restaurant and screaming at you and forcing you out like the left did to conservatives. So if you want to complain that someone took your photo, by all means, you're allowed to, but it's a bit hypocritical when Maxine Waters called on people to confront Republicans. Expect equal treatment. I don't see Republicans doing it, though, because they tend not to do this kind of thing. So there you go. I'll leave it at that. I just want, I wanted to address the Proud Boys and some of these stories. And the main reason was a lot of these stories I don't think were big enough for me to do a full video on, but together I think I can address the issue. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks for hanging out. Stick around. More videos to come tomorrow at 10 a.m. I will see you next time.